Trump administration, drunk on its own rhetoric of American invincibility, launched what it thought would be a swift, decisive war against Iran. A war designed to reshape the Middle East in the image of Tel Aviv and Washington. But instead of the usual parade of obedient allies falling in line, something entirely unexpected has happened.
European leaders are doubling down on
Trump has again pressured Europe to come and help us with the Strait of Hormuz. But European leaders have again told him this is not Europe's war. The
U.S. allies are reacting with caution or just flat out refusing a request from Donald Trump to help secure oil shipments through the Strait of Hormuz.
Europe, the so-called junior partner in the transatlantic alliance, has not just refused to participate, they have actively slammed the door in America's face. Spain, France, Italy, Greece, Portugal, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, and even the ever-loyal United Kingdom have all, in various ways, told Donald Trump that his war is not their war. They are denying overflight rights, closing airspace, refusing, and in some cases, publicly denouncing the entire illegal enterprise. This is not diplomacy. This is a mutiny. In the last 72 hours, we have seen a cascade of defiance that has left the White House in a state of pure panic. Spain, a NATO member and host to critical U.S. naval facilities at Rota and Moron, was the first to break ranks. Defense Minister Margaritas stood before the cameras in Madrid and made it crystal clear. Spain will not allow the use of its military bases or its airspace for any actions related to the war in Iran. This wasn't a quiet diplomatic note. Then came Italy. Multiple Italian news agencies, citing Defense Ministry officials, confirmed that the U.S. was denied access to Naval Air Station Sigonella in Sicily. American bombers, loaded with munitions, were turned away at the gate. France followed suit, with President Macron's government refusing overflight clearance for U.S. military aircraft carrying supplies to Israel. Donald Trump, in a fit of rage on Truth Social, called France very unhelpful and vowed that the USA will remember. And Greece, while allowing some access, has done so under such restrictive conditions that it's clear they want no part in the offensive operations. Before we go any further, I want to ask you something. If you are watching this and you believe in honest journalism, in telling the truth about the wars being waged in our names, then I need you to do something right now. Hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear what's actually happening in the world. And drop a comment, even if it's just a dot. Or better yet, tell me where you're watching from and what you think about Europe finally standing up to American imperialism. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. We are one of the last bastions of real reporting that doesn't bow to the war machine. Your subscription is what keeps us alive. Do it now. Now let's get into the meat of this story, because what we are witnessing is not just a diplomatic spat. This is the unraveling of the post-World War II order. To understand why Europe is suddenly growing a spine, you have to look at the economic destruction that this war is already inflicting on their people. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz, Iran's legitimate response to being bombed by the U.S.-Israeli axis, has sent shockwaves through the European economy that are now being felt in every household from Berlin to Barcelona. Let me give you the numbers, because numbers don't lie. According to data from Eurostat, inflation in the Eurozone jumped to 2.5% in March, up from 1.9% just a month earlier. And the primary driver? Energy prices, which have surged by an eye-watering 4.9% annually. But that's just the headline. Dig deeper, and you see the real devastation. Germany, the industrial engine of Europe, is in absolute crisis mode. I'm talking about factories reducing output, supply chains snapping, and the very foundation of their manufacturing sector beginning to crumble.
Instant happiness is here at Rent-A-Center. You could get instantly approved for up to $4,000. Shop for anything you want in-store or online, up to $4,000, all without using credit. Go on, get happy instantly.
The smartest people on earth know how to spot a good deal. That's why they shop at Ollie's first. You'll save up to 70% off the fancy store's prices. So you go, you smart and savvy shopper. You know where the real deals are, where they sell good stuff cheap. Ollie's!
Manufacturing sector beginning to crumble. The VCI Association, which represents Germany's chemical industry, one of its most vital sectors, says companies are operating in what their CEO, Wolfgang Gross-Entrup, calls absolute crisis mode. He said, and I quote, "The signals we are receiving, particularly from small and medium-sized enterprises, are in some cases dramatic." And he warned that the longer this war lasts, the more severe the consequences will be. Think about that. Germany's chemical industry, the backbone of everything from pharmaceuticals to fertilizers, is gasping for air because the cost of natural gas has skyrocketed. SKW Piesteritz, a major fertilizer producer in Saxony-Anhalt, has already had to cut production despite a surge in global demand. Their managing director, Karsten Fransky, said these price jumps are threatening for the company if they can't pass the costs on to customers. And it's not just chemicals. Steel giant ThyssenKrupp has warned that a permanently higher gas price will hammer their production costs. Cement maker Heidelberg Materials says sustained electricity price hikes will devastate their European operations. Seifert Logistics, a trucking company, has seen its diesel costs shoot up 50% since the war began. Their CEO, Axel Frey, said they've been on the phone with customers around the clock, trying to adjust prices just to stay afloat. Now, let's look at the bigger picture. The Strait of Hormuz is not some obscure waterway. According to Bank of America Global Research, approximately 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas and oil supplies transit through that narrow passage. When Iran closed it, and let's be clear, they closed it because they were attacked, they effectively put a tourniquet on the global energy market. For Europe, which has already been bleeding from the energy crisis following the sabotage of Nord Stream and the sanctions war with Russia, this is catastrophic. The IFO Institute, one of Germany's leading economic research bodies, has already slashed its growth forecast for the year from 1% down to a meager 0.6% if the conflict is drawn out. Christian Coleman, the CEO of chemical company Evonik, put it bluntly: the rise in gas and oil prices will eat through the entire value chain. He said the tender buds of a German economic recovery may not be crushed entirely, but they will be significantly damaged. And remember, this is just 2 weeks into the war. What happens after 6 months? What happens when European industry has been bled dry? When the cost of living has spiraled completely out of control? When the working class can no longer afford to heat their homes? That's the nightmare scenario that European leaders are staring down, and they are realizing that the United States, in its zeal to do Israel's bidding, has left them holding the bag. And this is where the history comes in. Europe has been down this road before. They remember 2003. They remember Colin Powell standing before the United Nations with his little vial of white powder lying through his teeth about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. They remember the invasion, the occupation, the chaos, and the eventual rise of ISIS, which sent millions of refugees flooding toward their shores. They remember that the United States, having shattered an entire country, simply shrugged and moved on, leaving Europe to deal with the human fallout. As one analysis put it, the Iraq War was a lesson for Europe in what happens when you blindly follow American adventurism. You get the refugees, you get the terrorism, you get the economic disruption, and the Americans go home and pretend it never happened. And now, here we are again. Only this time the stakes are even higher. Iran is not Iraq. It is a far more capable, far more resilient nation. And the Iranian military has shown that it can not only defend its territory, but also strike back in ways that cripple the global economy. But let's talk about Israel, because we can't dance around the elephant in the room. This entire war, let's be honest, is being waged for the benefit of Benjamin Netanyahu and his extremist coalition. For decades, Israel has hidden behind the fig leaf of defense, pretending to be the victim while systematically ethnically cleansing Palestine, occupying Syrian land, and terrorizing its neighbors. Now, they have decided to drop the pretense entirely. They are no longer content to be the regional bully. They want to be a global power, and they want the United States to burn down the entire Middle East to achieve that ambition. And what is their justification? The same lies, the same fabrications, the same manufactured intelligence that we saw in the run-up to Iraq. But here's the thing. Europe has had enough. They watched as Israel bombed Gaza into rubble, killing tens of thousands of women and children, and they saw the United States provide the bombs and the diplomatic cover. They saw the International Criminal Court issue arrest warrants for Netanyahu, only to watch the U.S. Congress threaten to sanction the court. They know deep down that this is not about American security.
Hey, it's Ashley with 4 Patriots. We're in a bit of trouble. To put it plainly, we need to clear out some space.
Deep down, that this is not about American security. This is about Israeli expansionism, and they are refusing to be accomplices any longer. Spain's decision is particularly significant because of its geographic position. The U.S. Navy has invested hundreds of millions of dollars in the Rota Naval Base, which serves as the gateway to the Mediterranean. It's home to multiple destroyers that are critical to NATO's defense system. But Spain has made it clear that they will not be a launching pad for aggression. When Secretary of State Marco Rubio whined about Spain denying basing rights and said, "What's in it for the United States?" he inadvertently revealed the entire transactional parasitic nature of the American alliance system. For decades, the U.S. has treated Europe like a client state, a collection of vassals who are expected to provide bases, airspace, and legitimacy for whatever war Washington decides to start. But now, the vassals are waking up, and they are asking themselves, what have we actually gained from this relationship? The answer increasingly is nothing but instability, refugees, and economic pain. What we are seeing is the beginning of the end of American hegemony. Not because of any single battle or any single speech, but because the economic and political contradictions have become too glaring to ignore. Europe has looked at the costs of this war. The soaring gas prices, the collapsing industries, the threat of mass unemployment. And they have decided that the benefits of loyalty to Washington are not worth the price. They have seen how the United States treats its allies when they refuse to obey. Threats, sanctions, public humiliation. And they have decided that they would rather be independent than subservient. This is a monumental shift. It is the kind of shift that historians will point to decades from now as the moment when the transatlantic alliance truly fractured. Now, let's think about what happens next. If the Strait of Hormuz remains closed for 6 months, the European economy will be in a depression, not a recession, a depression. We're talking about unemployment soaring, factories shuttering, governments collapsing. The Bank of America analysis suggests that while the U.S. is relatively insulated from the energy shock, Europe and Asia face the greatest stagflation risk. And what is the United States offering in return for Europe's sacrifice? Nothing. Less than nothing. They are being threatened, insulted, and abandoned. The Trump administration has made it abundantly clear that they have no interest in European prosperity or stability. Their only interest is in advancing Israeli military objectives and projecting American power. And Europe has finally woken up to that reality. Let me wrap this up by saying that what we are witnessing is historic. The European nations, Spain, France, Italy, Greece, Portugal, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, the United Kingdom in its limited way, are making a stand. They are saying that they will not be dragged into another illegal war. They are saying that their economies, their people, their futures matter more than American geopolitical ambitions. They are saying that the era of unquestioning obedience to Washington is over, and I, for one, am here for it. This is the kind of journalism we do here. No spin, no propaganda, just the facts and the truth about who is waging these wars and why. If you want to see more of this, if you want to support a voice that refuses to bow to the war machine, then subscribe. Hit that like button and share this video with everyone you know. Because the truth is the only thing that can stop the next war. And right now, the truth is that Europe is standing up and America's war machine is reeling. We'll continue to follow this story as it develops. But for now, take heart. The world is not as broken as they want us to believe. There are still nations with the courage to say no.
AI is transforming